The end of sponsorships, advertising, everything involving betting companies in Brazil is near. We had an approval that could move to other levels, but it may be leading to the end of betting company advertising in the country. What about the issue with Confederación Sudamericana de Fútbol based in Paraguay, which has betting companies and won't stop having them as the competition's name rights sponsor and everything else? What will happen to the broadcasts? What will happen to all of this? Flamengo, I've already told you guys recently, doesn't suffer that much because today Flamengo receives more than 2 billion and this issue wouldn't affect Flamengo that much. But we have a very relevant situation to talk about here. Everything would decrease, not just sponsorships, but also prizes, broadcasting values, everything would drop. It's a snowball effect, but it would end Brazilian soccer. Flamengo is together, it's part of it, even though we know Flamengo is the main payer, it's part of Brazilian soccer, so Flamengo would go down with it in this situation. We're going to talk about all of this here. I have some important information here. I talked to a betting owner who has already talked to people from Confederación Sudamericana de Fútbol, Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association, the main confederations in the world, and he told me a situation that no one had mentioned, a situation that is very important to bring up. We're also here to talk about the issue with Luiz Araújo, this proposal, this interest from Atlético Mineiro. Raiza Simplicio even brought up the matter of the amount that Atlético wants to pay. Flamengo has already made a statement about the possible sale of Luiz Araújo. Off the record, Flamengo has taken a position, and we're going to bring that information here as well, which we've already brought exclusively on Placker. We're here reminding you that you can help Flamengo. Look, not just with the official patches, they even have them for kids' shirts at the Gavia store. But you can really help Flamengo a lot. Here you have YouTube shopping and you can get your official Flamengo 2026 jersey. With long sleeves, you can get the authentic one. Look, this one is authentic. I wear it over a long sleeve shirt. It's the authentic one. You can get it now, personalized or not. You can customize it, add patches and everything else here, buying it here. Besides helping our channel, you also help Flamengo because it's a sponsor of Flamengo. And on top of that, I choose the store that sponsors Flamengo. And on top of that, you pay royalties to the club. You're generating royalties for the club. Flamengo gets money because of your help by buying official Mango products here on YouTube shopping. So make sure to get your Flamengo products right now. I'll also add some Brazilian products at a lower price. They're cheaper products, but also high quality. And I'll also include the training products here, the Flamengo 2026 training line. There's a lot of cool stuff for you to get. Well, we also have our other sponsors in the pinned comment and description. Let's go. I'll start right away by talking about Luiz Araújo. Luiz Araújo's staff has been looking for offers in the market and the player wants more opportunities. I'm going to bring here the fans' comments. I'll bring the complete information according to a source connected to Flamengo's board. Talking to us, the player's staff has been looking for these offers in the market since the player wants more opportunities, more playing time. Atlético Mineiro's interest is real. They have already approached Flamengo, in fact, according to Raiza, and they also confirmed this to us as reported by Radio Itatiaia. There are also clubs from outside interested in signing Luiz Araújo, mainly from Brazil. However, Flamengo does not intend to negotiate the player with Brazilian football. Flamengo's management knows that the player authorized his staff to look for offers because he wants more playing time, but they don't want to let him go in this case. The management does not want to strengthen Brazilian rivals and believes that the player is important to the squad. We already have a lot of people saying, hey, paparazzo, Bruno Castagna mentioned in a live stream with you on your channel that Luis Henrique, that BAP didn't want to lose Luis Henrique. For Leila Pereira, that Palmeiras is also interested in signing Luis Henrique, that Flamengo has him on their list, guys, that list that was mentioned, which had Luis Henrique, Arias, and Juan Gomes himself. Flamengo is monitoring because of the possible relegation situation. That list also included Felipe Luiz with an imminent renewal negotiations, imminent departures. It was a list for 2025, for the end of 2025. And then we mentioned, look, Luis Enrique's name is really among those being monitored by Flamengo. And Bruno Castagna brought the information that he would be of interest to Flamengo, that Flamengo didn't want, in fact, to lose him to another club in Brazil. A source connected to the board reached out. They reached out to our channel to say that Flamengo is not at this moment trying to sign Luis Enrique. But you know how it is, the unlikely sometimes happens. Many times a situation is denied and then it happens with other names. We had Felipe Luis speaking. We already talked about this here last week. Felipe talking about his press conference. He said that Flamengo didn't need a defensive midfielder at that moment. But Alan left, and now Flamengo wants Marcos Antonio. In fact, this even creates a counterpoint to what Felipe Luis said, because Flamengo negotiated. Alan was loaned to Corinthians with a purchase option. And then Flamengo tried to sign Marcos Antonio. But Flamengo has priority when he is up for negotiation. And then there's the name João Gomes. But João Gomes, we know he has a market. We've said he has a big market in Europe. It would be almost impossible. The player would really have to want it. So, man, look, it's a situation that Flamengo is just monitoring. So we're bringing up these situations. Why? It's already been said too. Look, maybe they're negotiating. They're trying to negotiate Luiz Araújo because of other positions, other players. No, Flamengo doesn't want to negotiate Luiz Araújo, okay? That decision has already been made by Flamengo. Flamengo doesn't want to negotiate Luiz Araújo. In fact, Alan's departure wasn't unanimous. There are people internally who were against strengthening a national rival, especially for free, with a purchase option just for the salary. So a lot of people were against it. Flamengo fans complaining, saying that Plata is better, don't leave. L.A. Duda Camarinha sent here one of the best from Flamengo, Leandro Michael. And wherever he goes, he'll soar. Leandro Michael, right? Wherever he goes, he'll soar. He already saw Felipe doesn't give him space. Only Lino does. Wait, Lino's on the other side, right? The thing is, Plata, Lucas Nascimento, I think it's better to stick with Plata to keep things classy. It's complicated. It's Vaguinho 89, right? Always stuck on the bench. Plata just can't be benched. He's better than Samuel Lino. 10 times better. Juninho Play mentioned it. But look, guys, it's a different side, okay? He sometimes plays on the left side too. But honestly, I like Luiz Araújo playing on either side. For me, Luiz Araújo is one of the best players on the squad, okay? Right? Leo. 751 is going to Cruzeiro. Caio Jorge is coming. I've never seen a winger who, man, now they're already criticizing him. But anyway, guys, the vast majority, right, saying that he delivers more than Plata and Lino, even if it's just to play in the second half. In other words, Flamengo understands that he's an important player for the squad. Okay, he's an important piece in the squad, and Flamengo doesn't want to negotiate, okay? So the fans are obviously complaining about the possible departure of Luiz Araújo. But Flamengo itself has already made it clear that they won't sell Luiz Araújo at this moment. All right then, Flamengo doesn't want to sell actually, right? They don't want to sell. Let's see how this situation unfolds, especially since it's to a national rival, right? For a team from Brazil, Flamengo believes it's not worth it. These people, these sources connected to the board, think it's not worth strengthening a Brazilian rival. Regarding the issue of betting companies, look, Bet is off the field, the Science and Technology Committee. News brought here from the Camarote da República. At 6:36 today, this Friday the 13th, look, Friday the 13th. Man, that's right. So the Republic Box, which brings news mainly from the political area, brought the following. The Senate Science and Technology Committee approved Bill 3563-24, which prohibits advertising for sports betting and online games. The ban applies to radio, television, newspapers, magazines, social media, club sponsorships, and sports broadcasts. The text by Randolph Rodriguez from the Workers' Party also bans pre-installed apps and provides for fines of up to 10 million, as well as suspension or revocation of authorization. Information from Radio Senado. Jonathan, the first comment is that this will never pass. The betting companies are linked to the system. The government has already regulated it. To get a piece of the pie, do you think they're going to give up this easy money and something else? Cigarettes and alcohol are addictions. Are there going to be laws to ban them too? So, what I think is that they might. I also talked to a source connected to the betting houses who explained a lot to me, the most that can happen. First, okay, this also applies to team jerseys, and then people are saying, yes, okay, but then it's going to mess up most of the clubs. It's ridiculous. That, my friends, is what this source connected to. The betting companies told me, right? A major betting company told me, for this to happen, first it will have to go through a series of approvals. It's going back, man. It has to be sanctioned. There are a series of things, and it's very difficult for it to be approved this way. So what should happen, okay? It's after a long time that they decide there's a certain one. Only after a certain time will it be allowed to show betting house ads on television. Only after a certain time will it be allowed to have advertising boards. Only after a certain time will the club be able to use it on their shirt. That will only be allowed to appear after a certain time. But this same person told me the following, but that's impossible because what happens? The guy is going to post a photo on the social media of the player who scored the goal in the evening after the time when it can be advertised. And then you have to delete this photo in the morning because in the morning the kid is going to access it, they're going to see it, the person is going to access it, they're going to see the betting site there. Do you understand the difficulty? And then he went even further. He brought me some information here that has never been mentioned. I've never seen anyone talk about it, and I found it very relevant, which is the following. How does it work? The Libertadores, how does the World Cup work? What about the other competitions, which are also broadcast in Brazil? From abroad that have naming rights, for example, with the Libertadores, there, if I'm not mistaken, it's Sporting Bet, right? There have been others as well, and international competitions that have their own betting companies, the Conmebol Libertadores, Conmebol. Its headquarters are in Paraguay. Do you think Paraguay is going to go after the betting company? No, it won't. So how does that work? He asked me how they're going to do it. Paparazzo Rubro Negro, what's up? Are you going to approve something that can't be approved? Why? First, if you approve this, Brazilian clubs can't play in Brazil anymore. Because Confederación Sudamericana de Fútbol has approved its own sponsorships. If you remove those sponsorships, the prize money, just over 100 million or about $20 million, will fall to 30 million, then to 10 or 5. The competition won't be worth anything, right? Only the sporting aspect, but there won't be any prize money. How are you going to play in the Libertadores and be the only country that has a ban on betting companies? Do you think Confederación Sudamericana de Fútbol will agree to put their game and broadcasts and everything else? Without betting companies, when they've already closed those deals, it's not going to happen to have a ban on betting companies. Or you limit the schedule and allow what's already been published to stay published, right? So you don't have to delete it later, or there's no way. Why does this happen? Brazilian clubs can't play in the Libertadores, or they'd have to play abroad with no broadcasts in Brazil. That's pretty wild, isn't it? Having to play games outside Brazil because you can't have advertising boards, because you can't have broadcasts, because you can't do this, you can't do that. It would be the only country where its teams would have to play their games abroad because it's not allowed in Brazil. Betting companies. So even the Libertadores couldn't hold its games here, right? Not here because I'm not in Brazil. But in Brazil, they understood the issue. The duplicity there is, the craziness there is. It's very difficult. From this bill, from this whole situation that some are approving, for them to manage to get a total approval, that's what could happen. That's the most I believe, and that's what this source connected to a betting giant told me. It's them limiting the number of publications, right? Of real advertisements, right? Not what's on the jersey, which is indirect, but the real ones, for example. the actual ad, during the game, they posted it, they did that advertisement. You limit so many betting companies at most, or just one, right? You can limit the number, limit the advertising. And you can set a time when in Brazil the betting sponsor can appear starting from that time. And everything that was left behind you forget. And also, for example, if the publication, right? The broadcast was done after 8 at night. Let's say they only allow betting sponsors starting from 8 at night. Okay? In the broadcast, do you really think that the big networks like Globo are going to accept a situation like this? You know how everything works in Brazil, right? So what now? But let's say they do it from 8 o'clock on, then Globo can broadcast it, they have it too, and now it's on social media, GETV, and everything else. Then they broadcast it and leave things published. When it was 5 in the morning, I don't know what time exactly, that's when they'll say you can't have betting ads anymore. They have to delete everything, remove everything, make everything private. It doesn't make sense, right, guys? It doesn't make sense. And it's the same thing with the clubs, right? They won't be able to play in Brazil because betting companies aren't allowed, but CONMEBOL is sponsored by betting companies in the Libertadores. So what do you do then? The World Cup can't be broadcast in Brazil. Do you really think Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association is going to remove betting ads from Globo, the ads they already have from Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association and everything else? If there's a betting company, do you think they're going to remove them in competitions across Europe? And we won't see anything. We won't see anything because it's not allowed, right? And they'll have to cover everything in real time. It doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't make sense. It's a situation that's impossible to carry out, I'd like to read your comments if you're against continuing to have betting houses in this. In this football scene, as I've already said, for me, Flamengo isn't affected at all. It affects all the other clubs because there are a lot of clubs that only survive because of this. But if you're in favor of ending it all, explain to me how you're going to do it. Without preventing the club from playing in the Libertadores, without stopping Brazilian fans from watching the games, find me a solution that's not just about limiting the schedule, but also not forcing payment the next day because it's already been broadcast. Or am I crazy? Comment here. I want to see what you say.